Hi, everyone. I'm Becky Farrell, Research Lead and Programming Consultant for Dance Data Project. Our series, Moving Forces, Motherhood and Dance, is composed of rapid-fire conversations with mothers in varying roles in the dance field. Today, I'm so excited to be joined by the fabulous Yvonne Montoya, mother, dancer, binational artist, thought leader, writer, speaker, and the founding director of Safos Dance Theater. So, Yvonne, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited that you're here. So, okay, this is rapid fire, so let's just get down to it. So, at what point in your career did you become a mother?
I would say on that transition from early to mid, it was when I was going from being a dancer in a company and not choreographing to choreographing and becoming an artistic director. But I was a little bit older because I took a non-linear dance path. I went and got a master's degree in something outside of arts. So it was a little bit, I detoured a little bit. So I was slightly older, but in between that early to mid bridge. Yeah.
And at that point, were there some barriers that you experienced like right away?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's usually what people
I mean, the dance community in Tucson at the time, and probably now too, just wasn't designed for moms. So there was no resources or no understanding. I was expected to work and perform at the level that I'd been doing when it was just me. And now I had this child who was coming to rehearsal with me and sitting there for an hour and a half during class or rehearsal, bored to tears, right? This little toddler. So I feel those were definitely barriers, was the lack of understanding in the field overall as a practitioner, as a dancer, right? Because I was still dancing with other people at that point in time. As a choreography, I feel like I had a little bit more space to create what that would look like for me, but there was still so much, right? Like I remember walking into a rehearsal, it was 9 a.m. with 3 dancers, and they were like, oh, we're so tired. You know, we just got up, our bodies are sore. And I'm thinking, I left my house at 7. You know, I got up at 5:30 because I had to pack my kid the lunch and his clothes for after school. And I'm not getting home till 8 tonight. And it's like, no idea, like so different. So no idea of like those different concepts. And then I think too, another barrier, I live and work in Tucson, so I'm away from the major dance centers, and I didn't do work out of the state or even out of the city for the first 7 years of my son's life. So that was a barrier, and that I couldn't really branch out. I had to pass opportunities for residencies, things like that, that was going to take me out of the state for a month or a week if I would have got them. Yeah. And then, also just even going to conference, even like, you know, the APAPs and those conferences to network, it's just not feasible to pack up and go for a you know, that long of a time when he was so little.
Yeah. I mean, the system is just not set up for that, right? I mean, there's no childcare available. You know, I think that that's one of the big ones, especially for mothers who want to travel with their children, right? And kind of let them be part of this creative process and see what you do. And if the system's not set up for that, then that equates to some missed opportunities.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So were there any resources or support systems that were helpful? Was there anything in that early period of motherhood? And what about now? Has anything changed?
Oh, those are great questions. I'm going to split these up into like personally and then professionally. So personally, my in-laws, because when I did start traveling when he was 7, they were there to pick him up from school and take him to his after school programs. So my brother-in-law, my mother-in-law, especially, they live in town, really helpful. I couldn't have done it without them. My mother-in-law also gave all that free childcare so I could still dance or go to a rehearsal when he was really little. So I'm really, really grateful. Luckily, my partner is also a dancer, was retired at the time, but is now out of retirement. And so understood and really worked to try to figure out a way to make this work. So I had that support.
Right.
I think professionally, like the biggest catalytic moment in terms of support was Space on Ryder Farm. They're a residency in Brewster, New York. And I received that, I want to say in 2015 or 16. I don't remember exactly the year. And it was, I don't know, they changed the name. So I don't remember if it's parent residency or family residency now, but I went with my kid. I had, you know, you just had to pay to get there out of pocket. So there still was that barrier of like, I had to invest in myself. There wasn't resources for that, but it was brilliant. They had artists, camp counselors, and my kid could go play with other kids and just be artistic all day. And I got to spend, you know, 8 hours in a studio. We got to have breakfast together and hang out together afterwards. And we really bonded. We had a great time. And that is where I started incubating Stories from Home, which is a piece that we're going to premiere in 23. So that, and why don't we have more of those residencies where we can bring our children and know that they're safe and they're with other kids and they're having fun. It's overall a very beautiful experience. Presently, it's still, you know, I have childcare built into my budgets and I work with other parents, but it's still kind of sparse from where I'm sitting. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, and I'm thinking about some other family residencies that have been popping up lately, but they're still very few compared to what is needed for the field. And again, thinking about rehearsal time, what happens when you go on tour? You know, what happens when you have performances? I mean, it can't just be a one-off residency as the one support for an artist's career. Yeah, it's very challenging.
Yes, absolutely.
So when we think about encouragement, it's so great that you had this awesome support for your in-laws. So when we're thinking about encouraging some more supportive partners, particularly those who are male identifying and playing an equal role in the parenting, do you think that that is something we should be looking more closely at? Do you see that males are playing a different role in parenting? Because so many times we see that children are so attached to their moms, right? Like they want to be with the moms. I think there's just a little bit of added pressure there that could sometimes be difficult when you do have to go on tour, when you do have to do something where you have to be away from your child. What does it look like to have equal parenting in those situations? Is it possible?
This is such a difficult question. I'll say trick question, but it's not. It's a difficult question. A couple things, this is rapid fire, the two things that come to my mind right away. One is the age of the child. So now that my child is older, I think that he would prefer to be with dad than with me. And it's smoother. Like, oh, so when are you leaving again, mom? Because, you know, dad is really squishy on bedtime and, you know, homework's kind of a suggestion. So I think that there's that. But, you know, culture plays into it too. Yeah. So my partner is an immigrant from Mexico. And so there are these cultural gender roles that we were constantly, still to this day, negotiating and having conversations about, and who does what and whose responsibility is what. So I think just keeping the lines of communication open. Like I said, it was really helpful that my partner also comes from dance and is a dancer, because there wasn't ever like, what do you mean you have to be in the theater really late? You know, there's hours and hours where I can't pick up the phone because we're rehearsing. You know, there wasn't any of like that. That was well understood, but it's more of and we still have these conversations now that I don't dance anymore. But my partner does. It's like, well, who's making dinner? Right. Dance happens after, you know, and our kid is also not in dance, but in the performing arts. So we have to eat at some point when we come home. Absolutely. So are you cutting the vegetables and who's doing the dishes? Like these very specific, like, and who's picking the kid up, and do we need to ask, right? There was a couple weeks ago, I had a performance that started at 7. My partner had a rehearsal that started at 7, and my son had a recording that ended at 7. So we all had to be somewhere, and it's like, well, who's going to get the kid? So, you know, there's still those. So I guess communication is the biggest one, and just, you know, having your partner on board. But it's difficult. I think it's something that's an ongoing tango.
Yep. I think so too. Yeah. And we've heard a lot that communication is key. And then planning, like having to do so much planning in order to make things happen. Again, because systems are not already in place. So you're creating the systems yourself, which is another barrier that usually falls on the mother as well, which is a really difficult place to be in. So with that, Are there additional ways do you think companies, venues, like maybe even some dance service organizations can advocate and support mothers in the field of dance?
First and foremost, budget for childcare.
Yes.
Please budget for childcare. Absolutely. I think more family parent residencies as well, that those are very, very important, that parents and moms in particular need to have that space to create. Why aren't there panels about parenthood in these national conferences? Why aren't, there's specific grants for other specific things, and why, at least a space to come together and talk, share stories, share tips, share advice. Because some of the conferences you go to a time management thing, and I was in one of those once, and a colleague of mine who was also a mother raised her hand and said, I have kids, how does this work? And like, oh, it's just not going to work for you. So, well, then can we talk about what does work for the parents, instead of just being like, well, this time management stuff isn't going to work because you're a parent. So good luck. I mean,
dismissive, very dismissive.
Exactly. Yeah. So how can we come together and share resources? I think that like that connecting, grants. Yeah. Great work. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
I think anything right now is a step in the right direction, because it's just so sparse right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I was even thinking about some of the service orgs, like there's so many affinity groups attached to a lot of the national service orgs. And I haven't seen one for mothers, even for like parents in general. And I think that could be really beneficial, that there would be a place that people can come together and chat and, get some more guidance. And maybe there's already childcare for everyone that's going to be there. These crazy ideas. Yeah. For me, it's just more support systems, I think.
And I think too, I think the more parents that we bring into the fold, we'll start, but understanding and recognizing the limitation of parents. Like I have 2 parents on my design team right now, and they can't be in all the meetings. Right. It's not feasible for them to attend, XYZ rehearsals. And I understand that, and I know that, and I understand my kids older, so the age that their kids are, and they be more flexibility. Like, okay, you can't engage in this way, but can you go engage in this way? And then it's okay. Like bring your child to rehearsal. The composer that's working on our project brought his child to rehearsal, and the child danced along with the dancers, was doing the actual choreography, and it was so beautiful. And I'm like, isn't this what dance is supposed to be? Right. This intergenerational connection and this beautiful coming together and moving is different in different bodies, different generations. I mean, it was supposed to be a communal thing, and not like, oh, we go over there and do this thing, and then these kids are over here and doing that thing. So I think, when is it appropriate to have the kids at rehearsal, and that understanding, right, of these are the challenges we're dealing with. I think it's hard because when I was dancing in the companies, I didn't dance for anyone that had children. And so that not understanding, or getting the side eye, your kid again. It's like, well, do you want me at rehearsal or not?
Exactly. You have to have the whole person, right? Like the holistic person. If they are a parent, then that might mean that their child will also be in the space, making room for that. Yeah, I think it's really important. Okay, last question.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
What can Dance Data Project do to advocate for mothers in the field? What can we do? How can we help?
I think same. I mean, you are in spaces that we aren't. Advocating for, childcare and budgets is so important, and advocating for mothers' voices, putting the names of mother artists, dropping them in rooms, providing opportunities, because maybe, we didn't get out of I didn't get out of my community for 7 years of my career. So now that my kid's older and I want to expand, where are those opportunities? Where can I present my work? Showcasing and uplifting work about parenthood and motherhood. I've created work about that. Not that all my work's about that, but I have. And I know that, for example, in the UK, there's, festivals and platforms for that work, because I've had my work shown there. So where are those opportunities to open up these conversations and advocate in ways and in places that we can't or we aren't yet?
Absolutely. We're here to do that work. with y'all. Yeah. So thanks so much, Yvonne. And thank you to everyone who is watching. We have more Moving Forces interviews headed your way soon. Thanks.
Thank you.